They didn't knock. They stormed up my driveway like they were filming an action scene nobody asked for. Two men in pressed uniforms, badges glinting under the porch light, shouting my name like they rehearsed it in the mirror. I raised my hands, but my instincts didn't. Something was wrong. Their belts looked too light, their cruiser too shiny, their nerves too visible. Then the tall one spoke, voice trembling behind fake authority. "You're under arrest for multiple HOA violations and property destruction. HOA violations. Go ahead. Comment if that sounds ridiculous, because it was." The cuffs snapped tight, biting cold into my wrists. Neighbors peeked from behind blinds, pretending not to see. And my daughter Sage, 16, stood frozen on the porch, her plate of half-burnt burgers tilting in her shaking hands. Her eyes searched mine for answers. I didn't give any. Because this wasn't confusion, it was war disguised as order. Then I saw her. Karen Pimpton Hayes, HOA president, power addict, leaning against her black Mercedes SUV, polished to a mirror shine, wearing a bold fuchsia power suit that screamed attention and arrogance. Her matching heels clicked like a metronome of control. That smirk-sharp, practiced, proud told me she thought she'd finally broken me. I just stared back, calm, silent. The kind of silence that scares people who mistake power for victory. Ever watched someone throw their own victory party a little too early? Hit subscribe, because this one's about to crash hard. 6 months earlier, things looked a whole lot simpler. I'd just moved into Willow Creek Estates, the kind of neighborhood that looks perfect in real estate brochures but hides rot under the fresh paint. Wide lawns, trimmed hedges. Every mailbox lined up like soldiers. After losing my wife, Marina, cancer had stripped my world of color. All that was left was a hollow house and a teenage daughter trying to pretend she wasn't breaking too. I thought Willow Creek would be our restart. Quiet, safe, healing. We unpacked boxes in silence that first weekend. Sage cranked up old rock music, the kind her mom used to love, and we started restoring Marina's pride and joy, a beat-up 1967 Mustang convertible. That garage became therapy. The smell of oil, the sound of wrenches, the hum of memory. For the first time in months, I saw Sage smile again. If you've ever tried to rebuild your life piece by piece, share this. Someone out there probably needs that same hope. By Monday morning, I found the first envelope taped to my door. Violation notice, mailbox color non-compliant. Mailbox. Color. At first, I laughed. Thought it was a mix-up. But the next day, 2 more arrived. Grass exceeds regulation height. Trash bins visible after collection hours. Petty rules. Robotic language. And a fine is attached to each one. That's when I first heard her name whispered by a neighbor who looked too scared to say it out loud. Karen Pimpton Hayes, the HOA president. The woman who'd later send fake cops to my house, but back then she was just a rumor wrapped in a smile. I didn't know it yet, but I hadn't moved into a neighborhood. I'd stepped into her empire and I'd just broken one of her invisible rules. Ever move somewhere that looked peaceful, then realize it's run by a control freak with a clipboard? Hit like, we're just getting started. The first time I met Karen Pimpton Hayes, she didn't introduce herself. She made an entrance. It was a Tuesday evening, the monthly HOA meeting held inside the community clubhouse that smelled like overpriced coffee and air freshener. Every chair lined up in perfect symmetry, not one out of place. The lights were a little too bright, the smiles a little too fake. Then the door opened and silence followed her in. Karen stepped across the marble floor like she owned it, fuchsia power suit, tailored razor-sharp silver jewelry flashing under the chandelier. Her heels clicked with rhythm, confident and cold, the kind of sound that made people sit up straighter. She didn't need a microphone. Her voice carried like authority wrapped in sugar. Let's begin. We have some problem properties to discuss. Her eyes scanned the room and stopped right on me. No smile. Just a look that could slice through bulletproof glass. I'd been in interrogation rooms where killers stared with less intensity. But this woman? She was dangerous in a different way, polite, polished, and patient. When she spoke again, it was all theater. Mr. Blackwood, your front lawn has violated Section 4.3 height limit exceeded. The crowd chuckled softly. My jaw didn't move. I leaned back and said quietly, if you wanted to talk about grass, Karen, you could have knocked instead of sending love letters to my mailbox. The room went still. Her lips tightened just enough to show I'd hit a nerve. If you've ever met someone who hides control behind kindness, like this part, you'll recognize her type from a mile away. She closed her binder slowly, eyes locked on mine. I like rules, Chief. You like breaking them. Let's see who wins. Have you ever realized your neighbor's smile was just a warning sign? Stick around, things are about to get personal. It didn't take long for Karen Pimpton Hayes to draw first blood. 2 days after that HOA meeting, I woke up to the sound of my daughter yelling, "Dad, come look at this!" Spray paint! Across our garage door in thick black letters, "Rule Breaker," the kind of message you don't mistake for kids' mischief. It was deliberate. Neat handwriting. Someone took their time. Sage stood there barefoot, holding her phone, shaking. Her voice cracked. "Was it them, Dad?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I'd seen that exact phrase in the HOA Rulebook Section 7.9, Karen's personal obsession with property compliance. If you've ever had someone cross a line that felt personal, comment, because you know that silence that comes right before anger boils over. By noon, a bright yellow citation was taped to my door. Unauthorized exterior damage, homeowner responsible for cleanup. They vandalized my house and fined me for it. Karen's signature sat at the bottom like a trophy. I drove straight to her office, a spotless glass cubicle inside the HOA building, smelling of roses and control. She didn't even flinch when I walked in. Didn't look surprised. "Chief Blackwood," she said, sipping her latte, "we enforce order here. Maybe your house attracts attention because of your attitude." I leaned closer. "You sent those fake cops, didn't you?" She smiled slow, deliberate. "Careful what you accuse people of, Chief. Words can be expensive." Her perfume lingered after I left, sweet and venomous. That night, Sage found another envelope under the door. No address. No name, just one sentence inside. "Back down, or we'll make you. If your gut just dropped, hit like, because from here on, everything starts burning. Ever been pushed so far that the line between justice and revenge starts to blur? Yeah, we're getting close." By the end of that week, Karen had turned the whole neighborhood into her private army. People stopped waving when I drove by. Conversations ended when I walked past. Every house that once felt like part of a community now looked like a soldier in her little war. Then the letters started. Coming. Anonymous. Folded. Slipped under my door at night like ghosts. Whispering through paper. "Follow the rules. Chief, your badge doesn't protect you here. Maybe Sage deserves better neighbors. That one, the one about my daughter, hit different. It wasn't about the HOA anymore. It was about control. About fear. If you've ever felt outnumbered in your own home, comment, because that's exactly what it felt like. Still, I kept my head low. I went to work. I smiled through the tension. But every day I came home, there was something new. A trash can mysteriously toppled. A fine on my windshield. A camera is installed across the street, pointed directly at my front door. Karen didn't need to shout. She ruled through whispers, through neighbors who wanted to stay in her good graces. One night, Sage asked, "Why don't we just move, Dad?" I looked at her, this kid who'd already lost her mom, her peace, and now her sense of safety. "Because running lets them win," I said softly. "And that's not how your mom raised me. If that line hit you in the gut, hit like, because I meant every word of it." That same night, I caught movement by the gate, a shadow, watching, waiting. And under the porch light, a silver glint flashed from a camera lens. Ever had the feeling you're being watched, but no one believes you? Stick around, things are about to get real personal. The first time they showed up, it wasn't an arrest, it was a warning. It was late, close to midnight, when headlights rolled slowly past my house, then stopped. 2 men stepped out. No lights on their cruiser, no plates either. They didn't knock. They just stood there, silhouettes at the edge of my lawn, watching. Sage peeked through her window. "Dad, are those cops?" Her voice trembled. I looked closer. The badges gleamed, but the rest didn't fit. Wrong boots, no name tags, no department markings. I walked outside, calm, hands in my jacket. Years in law enforcement teach you how to smell a bluff before it opens its mouth. The tall one said, "Evening, Chief. Just checking on some reports. Reports, I repeated. Got a call sign? He hesitated. That half-second pause was all the confirmation I needed. This is private property, I said, stepping forward. If you've got real business, show me your credentials. The shorter one shifted nervously, eyes darting toward the dark street behind them. They weren't cops. They were pawns. Then from across the road, a familiar sound, heels on concrete. Karen Pimpton Hayes. Still in her fuchsia power suit, arms crossed, watching from beside her black Mercedes SUV. The streetlight hit her just right, half her face glowing, half in shadow. Like a woman who loved control but feared being seen, she didn't say a word. Just smiled slow, dangerous, proud. And then the officers got back into their car and drove off. Sage whispered from the porch. Dad, what was that? I looked at Karen one more time. That, I said quietly, was the opening act. If that line gave you chills, hit like because this game's about to turn deadly. Ever realize someone's not just trying to ruin your peace, they're building your downfall step by step? Stay close, the next move's hers. The next time they showed up, they didn't stop at the gate. They came for me. It was Saturday barbecue afternoon, sun high, music soft, one of those rare peaceful days I thought we'd earned. Sage was flipping burgers on the grill, humming to her playlist. For a second, I almost forgot about the war outside our walls, then tires screeching. A cruiser, same one as before, tore into the driveway like it owned it. Two men jumped out, faster this time. Guns holstered, hands on cuffs, shouting like they were in a movie. Garrett Blackwood, you're under arrest for multiple HOA violations and destruction of property. Neighbors froze mid-step. One woman dropped her watering can. Every eye in the street turned to watch. I didn't resist, didn't speak. My pulse slowed, years of training kicking in. But this wasn't law enforcement. This was theater. The shorter one shoved me toward the cruiser while the other fumbled with a body cam that wasn't even recording. Sage screamed, "Dad! What's happening?" Her voice cut through everything, the kind of sound that breaks you inside. And then I saw her standing by the curb, sipping iced coffee like she was watching morning TV. Karen Pimpton Hayes, still wearing that same fuchsia suit. Flawless, proud, a devil in designer heels. Her black SUV gleamed behind her like a trophy. She didn't need to say anything, her smile said it all. If you've ever felt the world turn against you while one person just watched it burn, comment, because that was me right there. As the cuffs clicked, I looked at her and whispered, "Enjoy the show. Karen, it's your last act. Ever been framed so perfectly you almost admired the setup? Hit subscribe because the comeback starts now." They tossed me into the back seat like I was a criminal, but the irony? I was the only real cop there. Plastic cuffs dug deep into my wrists. The cruiser reeked of stale air freshener and cheap leather. No department stickers, no radio chatter, just silence, the kind that hums with danger. Sage's voice echoed in my head, still screaming my name as they drove off. I tried to look out the window, but all I could see was her reflection, terrified, alone, powerless. That image burned itself into me. If you've ever been helpless to protect someone you love, like this part, you'll understand why I didn't blink after that day. We didn't go to the station. They drove me behind the Willow Creek maintenance building, the one Karen had renovated last month with HOA funds. Figures, her private stage. The tall fake cop turned off the engine, looked back and muttered, "Orders are to hold you here. She'll handle the rest. She?" I asked, voice calm but sharp. But he didn't answer. 5 minutes later, she appeared, Karen Pimpton Hayes, strutting across the asphalt like it was a runway. Same fuchsia suit, same black SUV purring in the background, same look that said she'd already written my ending. "You really thought your badge made you untouchable?" she said softly. "This neighborhood runs on my rules, Chief." I leaned forward, cuffs clinking, eyes locked on hers. "You should have picked a different cop to frame," she smirked. "Oh, I picked the right one. The proud ones always fall the hardest." That's when my radio crackled from under the seat, faint, distant, but enough. Backup had heard something. You ever feel the tide quietly start to turn, even when you're still down? Hit like the comeback's on its way. That radio crackle was the sound of hope. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to remind me the game wasn't over, not by a long shot. The fake cops didn't hear it. They stood outside arguing about something, their voices too nervous for real authority. I leaned forward, twisting my wrist just enough to loosen the plastic cuffs. Years of field training came rushing back. Pressure points, leverage, focus. In less than a minute, I slipped free. I checked the radio. The signal was faint, but dispatch had caught part of the transmission. I whispered, "Unit 79, code breach. Suspect impersonation. Send backup discreetly." And then I waited. From outside, I heard her voice, that smooth, honeyed poison. "Karen Pimpton Hayes. Gentlemen, thank you for your service. I'll take it from here." Her heels clicked closer. She opened the door and froze. I was still cuffed, or at least she thought I was. "You enjoy playing God, don't you, Karen?" I said. She blinked, startled for the first time. "Careful, Chief. You're not the one giving orders here." I smiled. "You sure about that?" The sound of sirens echoed faintly in the distance, growing closer. Her eyes widened just enough to show fear. She masked it quickly, but not quickly enough. If you've ever watched a bully realize they're losing control, hit like that moment's pure gold, she leaned in and hissed, "You think anyone will believe you?" "I own this neighborhood." I looked her straight in the eye. "You might own the streets, Karen, but I own the law." The color drained from her face. She turned to run, but the flashing red and blue lights were already painting her black SUV. You ever see justice start to crawl back from the ashes? Stay tuned, because this payback's just getting warmed up. By the time backup arrived, Karen had already vanished, slipped into the night like smoke. Her fake officers gone too, but they'd left behind enough clues to hang themselves twice. The cruiser, no plates, fake VIN traced back to a private security company out of state. Guess whose name was on the lease? Karen Pimpton Hayes. That night, I sat in my office long after everyone else left. The station lights buzzed overhead and the smell of stale coffee filled the silence. I stared at the evidence printouts, pictures, reports, all leading back to her. But it wasn't enough to arrest her. She played too smart, too clean. If you've ever had to fight someone who hides behind power, comment, because you know it's never a straight battle. So I changed tactics. You don't chase snakes. You smoke them out. The next morning, I called an emergency HOA meeting. Made it official, professional, but under the surface, it was bait. Karen couldn't resist the spotlight. It was her addiction. When she walked in, she looked untouchable. Same fuchsia suit. Same black SUV parked perfectly by the window. Same proud stride that screamed Queen. The neighbors clapped politely, unaware they were about to witness her fall. I smiled. "Mrs. Hayes," I said, "thank you for joining. We have a few security concerns to discuss." Her brow twitched, just slightly. The first crack in her armor. I played the recording from the fake officer's cruiser, their voices, her name, her orders. Gasps filled the room. She froze just for a heartbeat before the mask came back on. "You have no proof that's me," she said, voice shaking. "I have your signature on their paychecks," I replied. If that moment gave you chills, hit like because justice just stepped into the room. You ever see a liar realize the truth's louder than their voice? Stay close, the downfall's next. The moment that the recording finished playing, the whole room changed. Every whisper stopped. Every fake smile froze. And Karen Pimpton Hayes, the queen of perfection, stood there under the fluorescent lights, a statue cracking in real time. Her signature glared back from the paperwork I'd pinned to the board. Her voice echoed again from the recording, ordering her fake officers to make the chief disappear for a while. No more rumors. No more games. This was the truth on the loudspeaker. One of the board members, a man who used to defend her at every meeting, leaned back and muttered, "Oh my God, she really did it." The room felt like a slow-motion explosion. Karen tried to speak. "This is a setup." "He's twisting." But the crowd wasn't buying it. Neighbors who once feared her started shouting back. "You fined my kid for parking wrong. You ruined people's lives, Karen." Her control shattered piece by piece. I just stood there, calm, quiet, watching the empire she built out of fear burn itself down. If you've ever seen karma arrive fashionably late but perfectly dressed. Hit like, this is it. She tried to leave, heels clicking faster now. But the door opened before she could touch it. 2 uniformed officers stepped in, real ones this time. Karen Pimpton Hayes, you're under arrest for impersonation, fraud, and conspiracy to intimidate law enforcement. Her eyes darted toward me, not with anger anymore, but disbelief. You set me up? She whispered. I smiled slightly. No, Karen. You set yourself up. I just pressed play. They let her out the same way she'd once ordered me taken. Poetic, right? You ever see justice look that good? Stay tuned because the lesson behind this mess hits even harder. When the sirens faded and the crowd thinned, all that was left was silence, the kind that feels heavier than noise. Karen Pimpton Hayes was gone. Her black SUV sat abandoned, gleaming under the streetlights, a monument to everything she'd lost. I stood on that same driveway where it all started, the place she'd tried to humiliate me, break me, own me. The air smelled like rain and closure. Sage stood beside me, arms crossed, eyes red but steady. She really thought she could control you, huh? She said softly. I smiled. She didn't just want control, Sage. She wanted to be feared. Some people mistake fear for respect. If that line hits home, like this part, because too many people live under someone else's rules, just to keep the peace. We watched the tow truck haul away Karen's SUV. Every flash of light reflected off the chrome like a reminder. Power borrowed through fear never lasts. Neighbors started coming out again. Timid smiles, soft apologies. One man even said, "We should have spoken up sooner, Chief." I told him, it's never too late to do the right thing. Inside, Sage pulled that old Mustang cover off and looked at me. So, we finally get to rebuild without anyone breathing down our necks? I nodded. Yeah, and this time we do it our way. She smiled, really smiled, for the first time in months. And in that moment, it didn't feel like revenge. It felt like peace finally came home. If you've ever fought for your peace and won, share this story. Someone out there might need to hear it tonight. But before I close this chapter, let me tell you the one truth. This war taught me the kind that changes how you see power forever. People think revenge is loud, gunfire, shouting, sirens. But the truth? Real justice is quiet. It's that still moment after the storm when the air smells clean again, when you finally breathe without someone else's rules tightening your chest. Weeks passed after Karen's arrest. Her name disappeared from HOA newsletters. The fines vanished. The fear lifted, but I didn't celebrate. Not the way you'd think. I just sat on my porch one evening, watching Sage laugh with neighbors again. No more whispers, no more hiding. The sunset painted the sky orange and gold, the kind of view that reminds you what peace actually looks like. I realized something that night. Power isn't about control. It's about restraint. Anyone can bully, threaten, or manipulate, but true strength is keeping your calm when the world's daring you to break. If that hits you somewhere deep, hit like, because that's the truth they don't teach you in any badge, boardroom, or HOA meeting. I looked at the rebuilt garage door, clean, new, and quiet. The word rule breaker was gone, but I left one letter painted small at the corner, R. A reminder that rules don't define you. Your courage does. Sage asked me once, "Do you think she ever regrets it, Dad?" I said, "People like Karen don't regret losing power. They regret losing control." She smiled. "Then I guess we won." Yeah, we did. Not because I arrested her, but because she never broke us. If this story hit you, share it. If you've ever stood your ground when someone tried to silence you, comment your strength below. And if you want more stories like this, stories about justice, courage, and comeback, subscribe and stay with me. Because sometimes the best revenge is just living free.